The perpetual shroud of mist clinging to Havenwood was more than mere weather. It was a character, a silent, watchful entity that swallowed sound and blurred the edges of reality. This desolate coastal town, a collection of weathered stone houses huddled against the relentless sea, existed in a state of perpetual twilight, its inhabitants accustomed to the damp chill and the mournful wail of the foghorn. Within the sturdy, cylindrical embrace of the town's lighthouse lived Ilara, a woman in her mid-30s whose own life had become as isolated and shadowed as the landscape outside her window. Once a brilliant astrophysicist, her name had been whispered with awe in academic circles, a prodigy poised for greatness. But a catastrophic miscalculation on a pivotal space mission had shattered her career, her reputation, and her spirit. Now the rhythmic sweep of the lighthouse beam was her penance, its solitude her self-imposed exile. Ilara's days were a meticulous dance of routine, a coping mechanism against the chaos that still echoed in her mind. Every lens polished, every mechanism oiled, every log entry precise. It was a stark contrast to the vibrant life her younger sister, Lila, had embraced. Lila, in her 20s, had seen Havenwood not as a sanctuary but as a trap, fleeing its oppressive fog for the glittering anonymity of the city. Their relationship was a frayed cord, stretched taut across miles and unspoken resentments. Lila's infrequent calls were tinged with a blend of concern and exasperation, a constant reminder of the life Ilara had abandoned, or perhaps that had abandoned her. One blustery evening, as the fog thickened to an impenetrable wall, a global news report flickered across Ilara's ancient television screen. A newly launched orbital satellite, a marvel of modern engineering designed for deep-sea mapping, had detected something utterly anomalous. Beneath the perpetual fog bank off Havenwood's coast, the satellite registered movement, vast, consistent, and unlike anything ever observed. Authorities predictably dismissed it. Glitch, natural phenomenon, submarine currents, the usual scientific skepticism, designed to calm rather than to investigate. Yet, as Ilara watched the projected data, a familiar spark ignited within her. The patterns, the sheer scale of the displacement, resonated with a deep, unsettling familiarity. It was not random. It was complex, organized, almost deliberate. A flicker of her old passion, long dormant, stirred within her chest, a dangerous curiosity. The next morning, Old Man Finn appeared, a gnarled figure emerging from the mist like a wraith. Finn, a recluse whose face was a roadmap of wrinkles and whose eyes held the depth of the ocean, was known throughout Havenwood for his strange tales. He spoke of things in the mist, ancient entities that had always been there, sleeping. He whispered of shadows that moved when no wind blew, of the sea that sometimes swallowed sound. Ilara, ever the scientist, dismissed his ramblings with a polite but firm wave of her hand. Yet, as he shuffled back into the swirling gray, his words, like the persistent drizzle, began to seep into her thoughts, planting a seed of doubt. The satellite data, meanwhile, grew more persistent, the patterns undeniable, refusing to be categorized as mere anomalies. They were becoming increasingly complex, hinting at an intelligence, a purpose. Then, without warning, a small, unexplained power surge briefly crippled the lighthouse. The powerful beam died, plunging Ilara into absolute darkness, surrounded by the suffocating embrace of the impenetrable fog. For a terrifying moment, the world outside ceased to exist, replaced by an inky void. As the emergency lights flickered on, Ilara stood utterly still, her heart thrumming. That's when it happened. A faint, almost imperceptible pulsation registered on her old, repurposed scientific equipment, humming softly in the corner, a sound that shouldn't be there. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The faint pulsation, a rhythmic hum emanating from the repurposed equipment, became Ilara's new obsession. Sleep became a luxury she could not afford, her nights dissolving into a blur of flickering screens and complex algorithms. The satellite data, once a distant curiosity, now dominated her every waking thought, a puzzle demanding to be solved. Each new data point, Every subtle shift in the oceanic anomaly's movement was meticulously logged, cross-referenced, and analyzed. The ghost of her past, the catastrophic miscalculation that had cost so much, hovered over her, a constant reminder of the stakes. This wasn't just about scientific validation. It was about redemption. She pictured the lives lost, the careers ruined, a tapestry of failure woven with her own hands. Now, a chance, however slim, to prevent another disaster, to prove that her intellect, though flawed, could still be a force for good, fueled her relentless pursuit. The guilt was a heavy cloak, but beneath it, a desperate need for absolution burned bright. Lila's calls, once infrequent, grew more insistent, her voice laced with a growing anxiety. "Ilara, are you even listening to me? You sound different. Are you eating? Are you sleeping?" Each question was a barbed hook, pulling at the raw nerves of their fractured relationship. Ilara would offer curt, dismissive replies, her mind already drifting back to the glowing monitors. Lila's concern, however genuine, felt like an intrusion, a judgment on her self-imposed isolation. The city lights and bustling life Lila represented felt alien, a world Ilara had no place in anymore. During one of her rare breaks from the screens, a restless energy drove Ilara to explore the forgotten corners of the lighthouse. Dust motes danced in the sparse beams of sunlight filtering through dirty panes as she sifted through generations of maritime logs, leather-bound volumes filled with cryptic entries. And there they were, buried amidst records of storms and shipwrecks, accounts of strange lights in the depths, of the sea breathing in unnatural ways, of the fog taking on an almost sentient quality. Dismissed as folklore, sailor superstitions, or the ravings of lonely men, these entries now resonated with an unsettling truth. The things in the mist Old Man Finn spoke of, they weren't new. They had always been here, simply waiting. The satellite data solidified Ilara's growing conviction. What was once ambiguous movement was now undeniably a massive, organic-like structure, slowly shifting beneath the churning surface of the fog-shrouded sea. Its sheer size was staggering, dwarfing any known marine life. The implications were terrifying. Before Ilara could fully process this revelation, global news channels, no longer able to dismiss the anomaly, announced the dispatch of a government research vessel, a state-of-the-art oceanic explorer, heading directly for the fog bank. Havenwood held its breath. Days later, a chilling update. Communications from the vessel were mysteriously cut off shortly after it entered the impenetrable mist. A collective gasp of fear rippled through the small town. Panic began to spread like a contagion. The fog, already a constant presence, seemed to thicken, pressing in on Havenwood, no longer a benign shroud but a suffocating blanket. A strange metallic taste permeated the air, a subtle, unsettling flavor that seemed to cling to everything. Old Man Finn reappeared, his eyes wide with a frantic urgency Ilara had never seen. "It's awake," he rasped, his voice barely audible above the mournful wail of the wind. "The sleeping ancient. You've disturbed it, Ilara. We all have." His words, once dismissed, now carried the weight of prophecy. He spoke of warnings from his ancestors, of a time when the sea itself would rise in anger. A desperate resolve hardened within Ilara. Waiting, hoping for rescue, was no longer an option. The government had failed. She had to act. Her mind flashed to the rusty, forgotten hulk in the small, derelict boathouse behind the lighthouse. Her old, experimental submersible. A relic from her past, salvaged from the wreckage of her career. It was her last, desperate hope. It was a fool's errand, a death wish, but it was the only way to get close enough to understand. As she began the arduous task of preparing the submersible, clearing away years of dust and cobwebs, her hand brushed against a loose panel. With a gentle tug, it opened, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, neatly stacked and tied with a faded ribbon, were old research notes. Her father's notes. A marine biologist who had vanished years ago, his disappearance a gaping wound in her memory. His research hinted at a similar anomaly, a profound, unsettling connection to the very thing she was now pursuing. The revelation of her father's notes sent a tremor through Ilara. a chilling connection between her personal history and the unfolding global crisis. The weight of her past failures pressed down, a suffocating blanket of guilt, yet a fierce determination ignited within her. This was more than just scientific curiosity. It was a desperate quest for answers, a chance to perhaps understand her father's fate, and in doing so, redeem her own. The submersible, once a symbol of her dashed hopes, now represented a singular, terrifying path forward. Her frantic preparations were interrupted by the sudden appearance of Lila, whose arrival in Havenwood was as unexpected as it was unwelcome. Concern etched deep lines around her sister's eyes, a stark contrast to Alara's wild, almost manic energy. "Alara, what are you doing? I've been calling for days. The whole town is in a panic and you're tinkering with this rust bucket." Lila's voice, usually sharp and self-assured, trembled with a raw vulnerability Alara hadn't heard in years. A heated confrontation erupted between them, years of unspoken resentments and buried hurts finally boiling to the surface. "You always leave, Lila. You left me to pick up the pieces just like he did," Alara lashed out, the words laced with a pain that surprised even herself. Lila recoiled as if struck. "And you always hide. You bury yourself in your work, pushing everyone away. Don't you see? I'm here because I'm terrified of losing you too." Her voice cracked, tears welling in her eyes. The raw emotion hung heavy in the air, a stark reminder of their fractured bond. Eventually, the storm of their argument subsided into a tense, fragile quiet. Alara, her voice softer, almost a whisper, revealed her plan. She explained the satellite data, the missing research vessel, the ancient logs, and finally, the chilling discovery of their father's notes. Lila listened, her face paling with each revelation. "You can't be serious, Alara. Go down there? After what happened to him?" "It's suicide." Lila's opposition was vehement, born of a deep-seated fear for her sister's life, a fear she had carried since their father's disappearance. Despite Lila's impassioned pleas, her words echoing the very doubts that gnawed at Alara's own soul, Alara remained resolute. The submersible, a rusty but resilient relic, stood as her only hope. She meticulously checked its systems, the familiar hum of the machinery, a strange comfort amidst the chaos. Just as she was about to seal the hatch, Old Man Finn appeared, a spectral figure emerging from the swirling mist. His eyes, usually clouded with age, held a startling clarity. He pressed something cold and heavy into her hand, a tarnished ancient compass. "It doesn't point north, Alara," he rasped, his gaze piercing. "It points to what lies beneath, to the sleeping ancient. Use it wisely." His cryptic advice, once dismissed, now felt like a solemn blessing. With a final lingering look at Lila, who stood silhouetted against the deepening gloom, her face a mask of anguish, Alara sealed herself within the cramped confines of the submersible. The hatch clanged shut, a metallic echo of finality. The descent began, slow and deliberate, into the abyssal depths. The fog above her became a swirling, opaque ceiling, swallowing the last vestiges of light. The pressure mounted with every meter, the submersible groaning under the immense strain. Inside, the instruments began to malfunction, their readings erratic, flickering wildly like a dying flame. The darkness was absolute, broken only by the dim glow of the console lights and the occasional unsettling creak of the hull. Then, through the viewport, an eerie, bioluminescent ecosystem emerged from the blackness. Strange, glowing flora pulsed with an otherworldly light, illuminating bizarre creatures that drifted past like phantoms. It was a world unlike anything known to science, a vibrant, terrifying testament to the mysteries of the deep. Amidst this alien beauty, the ancient compass, clutched tightly in Alara's hand, began to spin wildly, its needle dancing erratically. Then, with a sudden, decisive jerk, it stopped, pointing steadfastly downwards, deeper into the abyss. Alara followed its silent command, guiding the submersible through a narrow, winding chasm. The lights of her vessel cut through the inky blackness, revealing a colossal, non-Euclidean structure. Partially obscured by strange, pulsing flora, it loomed before her, far larger than anything the satellite had detected. Its unnatural geometry defied comprehension, a silent, monumental testament to an unknown power. The monstrous structure, a bewildering fusion of the organic and the artificial, presented a labyrinthine challenge. Alara, her heart pounding with a mixture of terror and awe, carefully navigated the submersible through its intricate passages. The walls around her were not merely rock or coral, but a seamless blend of pulsating, bioluminescent veins interwoven with metallic-looking conduits that hummed with a low, resonant energy. It was a terrifyingly advanced form of life, or perhaps a living machine. The sheer scale of it dwarfed her vessel, making her feel infinitesimally small, a trespasser in a realm beyond human understanding. A sudden jarring impact sent a shudder through the submersible. Alara wrestled with the controls, her eyes scanning the sonar. There, partially embedded in a cavernous alcove, lay the remains of the government research vessel. Its hull was twisted and ripped open, not by explosive force, but as if torn apart by an impossibly strong, unseen hand. The sight sent a chill down Alara's spine, a grim confirmation of the danger she now faced. Her father's research notes, which she had hastily scanned before her descent, flashed through her mind. He had meticulously documented anomalies, patterns in ocean currents, and seismic activity that hinted at something far more profound than a simple geological formation. He had theorized about a dormant intelligence, an ancient consciousness that lay slumbering beneath the waves, its subtle stirrings misinterpreted as natural phenomena. He had been so close. Following the compass's unwavering guidance, Alara pressed on, deeper into the colossal edifice. The passages grew wider, the light more intense, until she found herself in a vast, central chamber. Here, the pulsing light was no longer merely bioluminescent, but ethereal, emanating from a colossal network of crystalline structures that rose majestically from the chamber floor, stretching towards an unseen ceiling. They hummed with a deep, resonant energy, a symphony of power that vibrated through the submersible and into Alara's very bones. This was the heart of the anomaly, the source of everything. As Alara watched, transfixed, the crystalline network began to shift, its light intensifying. It was then that the entity began to communicate, not with words, but with a torrent of images and emotions that flooded Alara's mind, bypassing her conscious thought. She saw visions of a dying planet, ravaged by human carelessness, of a delicate balance thrown into chaos. Then, images of cleansing, of renewal, of a world reborn. The entity was not hostile in the traditional sense. It was an ancient, self-sustaining intelligence, a planetary immune system reacting to what it perceived as a virulent infection. Its purpose was not destruction, but restoration, a process it intended to carry out with dispassionate efficiency. A horrifying realization dawned upon Alara. Her father hadn't been lost to the anomaly. He had been drawn to it, captivated by its allure, absorbed into its consciousness. The images confirmed it. A fleeting glimpse of his face, serene and accepting, within the pulsating light. He had become one with the entity, finding his own form of understanding, his own peace. The truth hit her with the force of a physical blow, a wave of grief and understanding washing over her. Meanwhile, on the surface, Lila, her face streaked with tears and dirt, fumbled with the makeshift tracking device Alara had given her. The emergency signal, faint but persistent, pinged on the screen, indicating her sister's location directly above the growing, churning fog bank. Lila had managed to track Alara, but now a subtle, insidious change was occurring around her. The air grew heavy, thick with a strange metallic tang, and the fog, already dense, began to swirl with an unnerving, almost sentient motion. The entity's influence was subtly affecting the surface, its cleansing process accelerating. Down in the abyssal chamber, the entity, sensing Alara's presence, sensing her understanding, began to accelerate its process. The crystalline network pulsed with a frenetic energy, and far above, unseen by Alara, massive seismic activity began to ripple through the ocean floor. The fog bank off Havenwood's coast thickened dramatically, engulfing the town in an impenetrable whiteout. threatening to consume everything. The climax was building, the ancient intelligence poised to reshape the world, and Ilara, the sole witness, was caught between an impossible choice. Ilara, cradled within the submersible's claustrophobic confines, felt the immense weight of her discovery. The entity's purpose, a planetary reset, was terrifying in its scope, yet eerily logical from its ancient perspective. She understood its logic, the cold, dispassionate efficiency of its intent, but also the catastrophic consequences for humanity. Her father's serene absorption into its consciousness echoed in her mind, a haunting temptation. But Ilara was not her father. Her scientific detachment warred with an ingrained human instinct to protect, to preserve. She had to act, to prevent this cleansing from obliterating everything she knew. A frantic surge of images from the entity revealed a vulnerability, a specific frequency, a harmonic resonance within its crystalline core, capable of temporarily disrupting its energy flow. It was a fleeting window, a momentary pause in its grand design. But the disruption required a massive, concentrated power surge, far beyond the submersible's capabilities. Such an energy release, if successful, would undoubtedly overload and destroy her vessel, and likely herself along with it. The thought of sacrifice, of finally atoning for her past failure, was both terrifying and strangely alluring. Just then, a fragile, distorted voice crackled through the submersible's comm system. It was Lila, her voice laced with desperation and static. "Ilara, are you there? The fog, it's everywhere. What's happening?" Ilara's heart ached. Her sister, so far above, so vulnerable. She took a deep breath, the cold reality of her situation settling in. "Lila," she began, her voice tight with emotion. "I understand now. Dad, he's here." He became one with it. The confession hung in the silence, heavy with unspoken grief. "And I have to stop it. There's a way, but it means I can't come back." A choked sob echoed through the comms. "No, Ilara, no, not again. I won't let you." Lila's voice was fierce, imbued with a pain that resonated with Ilara's own buried guilt. "You think I'll just stand by and watch you disappear like Dad? Not this time, Ilara. Not ever again." Lila's refusal to accept her sacrifice, her raw, protective fury, pierced through Ilara's resolve. It was a lifeline, a reminder that she wasn't alone, that there was something, someone, still worth fighting for beyond scientific redemption. Lila, remembering Ilara's past failure, the distant, unreachable sister consumed by guilt, refused to let history repeat itself. Above, on the fog-choked streets of Havenwood, Lila, her face grim and determined, refused to succumb to panic. Her urban survival skills, honed in the unforgiving concrete jungle of the city, kicked in. She rallied the terrified townspeople, their faces pale and drawn in the eerie whiteout. "Listen to me," she shouted, her voice cutting through the rising wind. "My sister is down there trying to save us. We can help her. We have to." Skepticism warred with desperation in the townsfolk's eyes, but Lila's conviction, her raw plea, slowly began to sway them. She explained Ilara's fragmented instructions, her scientific jargon translated into urgent, actionable steps. They needed to create a focused energy pulse, a massive discharge to disrupt the entity. The lighthouse, Havenwood's ancient beacon, held the key. Its powerful, antique generator, a marvel of forgotten engineering, could be repurposed. Working feverishly against the encroaching fog and the growing tremors, they connected makeshift conduits, guided by Lila's frantic directions and Ilara's precise calculations relayed through the struggling comms. Old Man Finn, his eyes wide with a knowing terror, helped direct the villagers. His cryptic warnings now understood as grim prophecies. The entity, sensing the surface activity, sensing the focused intent of the humans, retaliated. Powerful energy surges erupted from the depths, rocking Ilara's submersible violently. The crystalline core pulsed with a furious crimson light. Above, the fog thickened further, pressing down on Havenwood with suffocating force, threatening to engulf the entire town. Buildings groaned under the seismic stress, and the air crackled with malevolent energy. "Now, Lila! Now!" Alara screamed through the comms, the submersible groaning under the immense pressure. "Synchronize! Fire!" With a shared, desperate gasp, Alara, deep within the abyssal chamber, and Lila, on the trembling ground of Havenwood, initiated the synchronized energy discharge. It was a desperate gamble, a last-ditch effort against an ancient, overwhelming force for the survival of their world, and for the fragile bond that had been reforged between two sisters. The synchronized energy pulse, a desperate flicker of human defiance, ripped through the abyssal gloom, striking the entity's core with unimaginable force. A deafening sonic boom reverberated through the oceanic depths, followed by a brilliant, blinding flash of pure white light that erupted upwards, piercing the perpetual fog bank above Havenwood. It was as if the sun itself had plunged into the ocean, then burst forth anew. The fog, a character in itself for so long, began to writhe, then swiftly dissipate, revealing a sky of brilliant, unblemished blue that Havenwood had not seen in generations. Alara, miraculously, survived. Her submersible, a twisted, charred husk, lay partially fused within the altered structure of the entity, a testament to the unimaginable forces unleashed. She was weak, battered, but undeniably alive, her consciousness flickering back into awareness amidst the wreckage. Above her, the ocean, once a swirling vortex of energy, now shimmered with an ethereal, almost benevolent light. On the shore, Lila, her face streaked with tears of relief and grime from the frantic effort, watched in disbelief as the last vestiges of the fog vanished. The sun, warm and golden, kissed her skin, a sensation almost forgotten. Then, a small, dark shape emerged from the shimmering waters, slowly drifting towards the shore. It was Alara's submersible, or what remained of it. Without hesitation, Lila plunged into the revitalized ocean, swimming with a fierce determination towards her sister. Their reunion on the sandy beach was a silent, profound embrace, a healing of old wounds that ran deeper than the ocean itself. No words were needed, only the shared understanding of what they had faced, what they had overcome. The years of resentment, the bitterness of past failures, all dissolved in that moment of shared survival and love. The entity was not destroyed, but profoundly altered. The cleansing process had been halted, its destructive intent transformed into a benign, life-giving force. The ocean around Havenwood, once barren and foreboding, now teemed with an astonishing array of new, vibrant creatures, bioluminescent flora, and schools of fish in colors never before seen. The air, once heavy with the metallic tang, was now crisp, clean, and filled with the scent of salt and new life. Havenwood, though scarred by the tremors, was reborn, its bleak landscape now vibrant. Alara, no longer haunted by the specter of her past miscalculation, found a new purpose. She became the bridge between humanity and the transformed entity, dedicating her life to studying its altered state, understanding its new, benevolent influence. The lighthouse, once her prison, became her research station, a beacon of discovery. She charted the new marine life, deciphered the entity's altered communications, and helped the world understand the delicate balance they had nearly destroyed. Lila, surprisingly, chose to stay in Havenwood. The city, with its frantic pace and superficiality, now seemed distant, irrelevant. She found her own purpose in helping to rebuild the community, her urban survival skills proving invaluable in organizing relief efforts and fostering a new, resilient spirit among the townsfolk. The sisters, once estranged, now worked side by side, their bond stronger than ever. Old Man Finn, observing the transformed landscape from his weathered porch, smiled a knowing, toothless grin. His prophecies, once dismissed as the ramblings of a recluse, had been fulfilled in a way no one could have predicted. The ancient intelligence had been disturbed. Yes, but it had also been nudged towards a new path, guided by the unlikely heroism of two sisters. As the sun set, painting the revitalized ocean in hues of gold and crimson, Alara stood by the lighthouse, gazing out at the shimmering expanse. A faint, almost imperceptible hum resonated from the depths, a gentle thrum that spoke not of threat, but of a profound, ancient intelligence now coexisting in harmony with humanity. The mystery remained, but it was a mystery of wonder, not fear, a promise of a future where understanding, not destruction, paved the way.